Love it or hate it, Twilight was a cornerstone of pop culture in the 2000s and the 2010s. From the books to the movies to the discourse between Team Edward versus Team Jacob, the series' reputation preceded it. I read the books around like '08 or '09, somewhere in that range, and I liked them fine, liked them well enough. I don't know if I've seen all the movies. I don't actually think I've seen Breaking Dawn Part 1, but I believe I've seen the others and didn't enjoy them as much. As a whole, I feel like there's genuinely a lot of things in the Twilight series that I do enjoy and do get into, but there are a lot of aspects that just don't work. So when I heard about this, Life and Death, Twilight Reimagined, which, being honest, doesn't have the same ring as Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken, but like it almost pulls it off. But when I heard that there was an official gender-swapped version of Twilight, I realized, like, this is way too bizarre for me to pass up. I've got to check this out. Partially because on concept alone, it sounds really fucking funny. But also, I kind of wanted to know how it felt reading it from the other side. Reading the original book, I can see Edward's red flags from a mile away. Like, that shit is crimson. But, and granted, like, I'm not in high school anymore. I'm very much removed from that. But I remember what that was like. I can put myself in those shoes. And it's like, so if I can do that, if I had, like, a incredibly, unnaturally beautiful woman who was interested in me and thought I was the most incredible person in the world and that I was something special, would I be able to see her red flags too? And having read the book, I think I can. I think I would have. Like, I don't feel like my opinion on the actual Twilight book has changed that much. In short, yeah, I think it's a fun read that's a bit too long. That's at its best when it's not focusing on the romance. Because I do think there's a lot of neat stuff in here there's a lot of neat things about vampire lore and vampire culture. Did I say vampire? I think I just put a B in there. Vamp culture in the Twilight series that, while different and kind of silly in its own ways, are kind of neat and interesting to explore. When it's focusing on the romance, that's when I just don't enjoy it as much. And given the fact that it's a romance, that's where the big disconnect is. So, I want to talk about why, I guess I'm going to go in general, like, the things I don't like and the things I really do like, starting with the main thing I don't like, the romance, and for me, why it doesn't work. And I want to examine it from Beau, and why I'm going to keep calling him my boy Beau, but why I don't really like him. And then my girl Edith, and while there's things about Edith that I do enjoy, man, I don't really like her either. So starting with my boy Beau. And I'm gonna go ahead and say, there are probably gonna be several times where I'll refer to Edith as Edward, Beau as Bella, and etc, etc. I'll try to keep the names gender swapped because this is the version that I'm talking about, but for the most part, it's tomato, you know? So starting with my boy Beau, this is the gist of what his character is. He likes to read. He doesn't want to live in this new town because he's so used to his home and he's so out of his element, and he's very judgmental of the people around him. Which, funnily enough, given that this is called Twilight and people sparkle, the character I just described is literally Twilight Sparkle at the start of Friendship is Magic. And there's surprisingly other similarities between Twilight and my boy Beau. You know, they both struggle with overthinking and with self-doubt. They're people who, like, bleh. They're both planners. They don't take shit from people very well. And when push comes to shove, they will lock the fuck in. There is this one line from Beau that I actually really liked, where I believe it's something along the lines of, I'm really indecisive and I'm terrible at making decisions, but once I've made the decision, that is my decision, and it becomes a lot easier for me going forward since I know that's what I'm doing. And honestly, it's something I actually kind of respected. And I do think there is a likable... Oh, hi, Bahamut. Do you wanna be in the video, bub? Do you wanna come sit on my lap? Do you wanna make a cameo appearance? No, he's not even looking at me right now. I just felt his tail. Anyways, I do think there's a likable character in my boy Bo, but it doesn't really manifest for me. And I think the big issue is just how judgmental Bo is of the people around him. He's dismissive of his new friends. He constantly brushes off Charlie, who genuinely might just be the most likable character in the book. But even though he's dismissive of all these people, he's dismissive of his dad, and he just treats Edith like a god. Like, anytime he's with the Cullens or in their presence, it's like, oh, they're the most wonderful people. They're the most beautiful people, but, oh, look at this one. What's Eric's name in this? I don't remember. It's something with an E. It might just be Erica. It probably is. It's like, oh, yeah, she's this chess club, AV club type. I don't know. And it's like, oh, Michaela, yeah, she's nice, but... she's really possessive. What's it anything Edith does? It's like, those are completely fine. Oh, but Michaela's a walking red flag. Like, really, Bo? And not to say that, like, anything that Mike or Michaela does is completely fine. Like, no, there's genuinely, like, some, maybe you're a bit territorial there. I'm not crazy about this. But the fact that there's almost no... I want to say it. He gives Edith grace on things that he definitely does not give to other people. And it makes Bo come across as like he thinks he's too good for the people around him, while also constantly saying, oh, I'm not good enough. Like, I'm definitely not good enough for Edith and the Cullens. Oh, but I'm way too good for Forks. Which feels very inconsistent and just feels really annoying to read, if I'm being honest. Let's see. Sorry, I've got my notes here, and I'm trying to look off them, too. And kind of like I was saying, it's... his feelings for Edith, for me, feel very off. And I think, for me, it's not just the fact that, like, oh, you know, he gives her a lot of grace. It's like, well, you can make that argument. Like, this is the person he loves. Of course he's going to give her more grace. But I think that's the problem. I don't know what Bo loves about Edith, despite the fact that I read damn near 500 pages about it. She's attractive. She's incredibly, insanely attractive, because that's how vampires work in this world. All the Cullens are incredibly, insanely attractive. But it feels like Bo is interested because of the attraction, and also part of the mystique of what's going on, of this person who the first time they meet is, you know, cringing away as much as possible, and it's like, hey, don't be around me, I don't want to be part of you, and, you know, all that shit. It's less that they form a genuine connection, and I think a lot of it, too, is Bo kind of jumps straight into, she's perfect and amazing, and I love her, without... It's not just that Bo doesn't really get to know Edith. I feel like Bo never really wants to. It's not that, man, this person seems kind of interesting or kind of neat. I want to get to know her. I want to know what she's about. Sure, I'm attracted to her. But let's see if we click. Let's see if we get to know each other. Oh, what do you know? We do kind of click. Okay, there's maybe some red flags, but... there are some green flags here, too, and I think the green is outweighing the red, so I want to move forward and see where this goes. And it feels more just like this beautiful, perfect, flawless angel likes me, also wants to eat me and devour me, and there's, again, all of these sanguine fucking flags that I have to deal with. But you know what? There's a line for BoJack Horseman. And I don't remember her name, but it's the owl woman from, I want to say season 3, where she says to BoJack, I'm trying to remember how the conversation goes, because I think she asks him like what happened here, and he's like, well, you didn't know me, and then you loved me, and then you got to know me, and what she says is, you know, when you look at someone through rose-colored glasses, all of the red flags just look like flags. And that's kind of what's going on here, is Bo is looking at Edith through rose-colored glasses. So all the red flags just look like flags, and no one else gets that chance. And I feel like I would be more amenable to that if, number one, I didn't feel like Edith's flags were as fucking crimson as they are. Again, we'll get to that in a second. But also, if it felt like there was a genuine connection, and if Bo started to actually really like the person, get really into some of Edith's interests. And, like, they talk about that a bit, where there's, like, one conversation where Edith talks about music, but again, like, Bo is an avid reader. There is a point where I almost said she, because thinking of Bella, too. Like I said, I'm gonna flip several times, probably. But they go to, what is it, Port Angeles, I think, and they're gonna go, or Bo goes by himself to a bookstore. Edward didn't even mean to do it there. Edward knows that Bo really likes to read, and I genuinely don't remember a point where the two sit down and just talk about books. You know, like the fucking scene in Beauty and the Beast, where the Beast realizes Belle loves to read. I have a library. I mean, granted, it's Lumiere that hooks him up with it, but I want to do something for her. And his boy tells him, hey, I have an idea. This is something she would like. And it's this genuinely sweet moment between the two of them. You would think from Edith talking to Bo would know, wait a second, this is something you really like. I've been around 100+ years at this point. I know a lot of books. Maybe we can talk about books. Maybe we can relate to different characters. I just genuinely don't remember that happening. And it feels like it's something that would have happened. Like, it probably did, and I somehow glossed over it, but I don't remember. Instead, I just remember this one moment where they're talking about music because Claire de Lune plays, and if you know me, I fucking love Claire de Lune. I'm glad it showed up in the movie. But there's this line where Edith's like, yeah, you know, music in the 50s ruled, 60s sucked, 70s sucked, 80s was tolerable. And I don't know, I found that kind of funny, but I don't know if this is something Bo can necessarily relate to as much. And again, like, you don't have to relate to everything that your partner is into, but it, to me, never felt like I want to be your friend, and now that we are friends, there may be something there that wasn't there before. It was, wow, I'm really attracted to you, and I'm really intrigued by you, into you're the most perfect thing ever. And you can always make the argument, it's like, well, it's high school, they're high schoolers. One of them is a high schooler, the other one, not so much in terms of age, which again, that's one of the red flags. You can make that argument for Bo. It doesn't make... But that doesn't really give them chemistry, though. It doesn't get me as invested into the relationship. There's passion, for sure, but no real connection. So now let's move on to my girl, Edith, and these flags. Edith lies to Bo. Edith gaslights Bo. And there is a scene where she literally tries to hypnotize him, like, look into my eyes, and her eyes are all glowing, and it just doesn't work because Bo is immune to this the same way Bella was. That's never really explained, but whatever, like, it's fine, I guess. And like, I get it in context, and I feel kind of bad giving Edith a pass for this, but it's, look, she's a vampire. Vampires have to uphold the masquerade. If you don't, there can be trouble for you, for your family, for the entire vampire race, blah 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 blah. So trying to downplay, like, saving Bo's life. Like, Bo, what are you talking about? I was right next to you the whole time. You think I have superpowers? You crazy dude? Like, I get it. But in the context of a lot of the other, like, behaviors that she exhibits, I'm less forgiving. And even in the context of upholding the masquerade, it doesn't justify any of this other shit. Number one, the stalking. It is like, oh yeah, you know, look, Bo, you're a walking disaster magnet, so I'm just walking around making sure that you're safe, and I can hear people's thoughts, and I was able to save you, and if I wasn't stalking you, I wouldn't have been able to save you. Like, okay, yeah, you saved his life. That's great. That's also just creepy as hell. And then you get into the sleepwatching, which is also part of stalking, and like, I think I have a part of my notes where I talk about this specific scene later. But the scene where Edith talks about it, is a scene that to me shows the best parts of Twilight and the worst parts of Twilight in the exact same moment. So they're talking about what it means to be a vampire. And my boy Poe asks Edith, what are some things you miss about being human? To which Edith says, miss isn't the right word, because I feel like you can't miss something if you don't remember it. And I've been a vampire for so long, I don't remember my life. I don't remember what it's like to be human anymore. So there's nothing I really miss, but I am jealous of the fact that you can sleep. I can't. I haven't been able to sleep in almost 100 years. And she doesn't go like quite this deep into it, but knowing what we know about Edith and her character and part of her backstory, it's like, I have done some really horrible things. And those are things I am never going to forget. And I am always aware of them. There is my thirst, just my general vampire thirst, and also my thirst for you. And that is always on and always on my mind. And I can mind read. So while I can tune out, I can never turn it off. And I am constantly hearing everyone and everything around me, on top of all my regular thoughts, on top of all of my thoughts telling me how terrible I am because of the horrible shit that I've done, and the thoughts telling me that I'm a horrible fucking person now because I'm trying to get close to this person. I am close to this person that I want to kill. And if I could just go to sleep and not think about that for a few hours at a time, that would be wonderful. But I can't do that. I am trapped with my mind. Well, damn. That is really interesting and like really messed up. And it's something that's like, okay, it doesn't justify some of Edith's behavior, but I feel like I'm kind of starting to empathize with this character. I'm starting to like this character. Then Bo asks what I think is genuinely like a good follow-up question. Like, wait, so you don't sleep? So what the hell do you do at night? You know, that's a solid like 8 hours. Like, what do you do? I watch you sleep. What? Like, yeah, you know, like for the past, I don't remember, it was like few weeks, few months, I've just gotten to the habit where I just, I sit and I watch you sleep. And I can't read your mind, but you talk in your sleep, and like you talk about me in your sleep, and I think it's great. And then later on, there's like, I wrote you this song. And you're like, oh, that's really sweet, because, you know, Edith really likes music, likes classical music. So she's playing the vampire for Bo. And it's like, oh, this is really pretty. Oh, you like it? Like I was really hoping you would. And then Bo kind of, oh, you wrote that for me? Oh, that's so sweet. Look, this is really sweet. You know, it's moments like these where I kind of start to like Edith again, and I feel like there is some charm, and I can see Edith is putting in like effort and the interesting shit, and it's like, yeah, you know, I was inspired to write this song because by the way you sleep, like the way you do it and the sounds you make when you sleep inspired me to write this. And you lost me again because that's weird. What the hell? Why are you like this, Edith? Why are you like this life and death Twilight Reimagined? The stalking is uncomfortable. The sleepwatching is really uncomfortable. That's not getting into Edith's sudden mood swings or her, like, the sudden mood swings, like the violent bits of anger, the constant mixed signals, especially in the early part of the novel, and, yeah, the burning desire to eat Poe alive and to drain him of his bodily fluid. Sorry, I just thought of Doctor Strangelove for a second. Yeah, there's some real fucking red flags. Also, Edith is over 100. I think it's 108, 109, somewhere in that range. She was turned when she was 17. Which leads to this one exchange that I really like and really hate at the same time. It's like, I love it because it's creepy, but I don't know how creeped out I'm supposed to feel, which is why I'm like, I don't know. Like, is this supposed to be charming? But it's Edward, again, other names, Edward, how old are you? 17. How long have you been 17? And it's like that, and then like the sleepwatching and stuff, where if Twilight was written less as a romance and more of like a horror novel of I'm trying to survive this relationship with someone that I am interested in, but also afraid of, because they do love me, they are interested in me, but they want to eat me too. And I don't know at what point, especially given like Bo's issues and Bo's doubts, I think one thing Bo has said a few times is like, because I'm such a normal, like bland person, I don't think I'm worthy enough for Edith. And I think there's a point where she's going to get tired of me and want to leave. If you change that into I'm afraid she'll get tired of me and then she'll just eat me, oh, that becomes so much creepier. And you could easily like take this setup and I think write a really engaging horror novel where you could try to make Edith as like this monster that has these redeeming qualities, or you could make her this really empathetic character. But no, we are diving into how creepy this is, and our main character, our narrator, is also like, no, this is creepy as hell. But, as Edith points out, what are you gonna do about it? You can't, as if you could outrun me, as if you could fight me off. Everything about me, even down to my scent, invites you in. Where, yeah, that scene is, I think, played a little creepy, but it, to me, comes across more of, even though Edith and Edward are doing it as like a threat, it's almost kind of teasing, like, you idiot, why don't you understand the danger you're in? And Bella/Bo going, well, because I love you and you're perfect. But again, you could make that scene feel so fucking scary. This feels like something that exists. I mean, just the general concept of like being in love with a vampire who wants to kill you. Like, there's no way that doesn't exist. There's probably like fan fiction of Twilight or like heavily inspired real stories that are something like that. That feels like something I would kind of want to read now. No, like, I'm so serious. This sounds like really dope. But yeah, and anyways, getting back to the age difference, that's a big age difference. That's icky. But there's this one bit where, again, like, it's a moment that has a genuinely funny line where Bo says, like, oh yeah, my mom says that I was born a 30-year-old man and I keep getting older every year. Talking about her maturity, her thing with Bella, but their maturity. And, like, that's a funny line, but I think it's, like, triggered by Edith saying, it's like, you don't seem 17. You don't act 17. I'm like, that feels like grooming 101. I don't like that. That's really fucking creepy. And like I've said, there's parts where I start to like the character, where I can see the effort that Edith puts in, or I can see that, as I was saying earlier, to me it doesn't feel like Bo really wants to get to know Edith. It's more just, I want to know you in the biblical Shakespearean sense. Edith really wants to get to know Bo. It's like, you are the one person whose mind I can't read, and I don't know why, and there's never really a reason for it. Just, when she becomes a vampire, Bella has a shield power, and okay, it's because she had that as a human, and there's no real explanation for it, but then again, there's no explanation for how Alice can see the future. She just can. Magic exists. Deal with it. Fair enough, I suppose. Anyways, point. You are the one person whose mind I can't read, meaning you are the only real... sorry, I can see the page of the book. You are the only real enigma in my life. So I'm curious. I want to get to know you, the one person I can't read. What do you like? What do you like? What is your life like? Tell me about Bo. And is genuinely, like, just so interested and fascinated about every facet of Bo's life. And you can make an argument that maybe that's a red flag in and of itself, like, she's too invested. But honestly, like, I kind of like that. I like that this is someone who is putting forth an effort, who seems like they are trying. But I have my nature as a vampire, and I have to fight against that. Like, that is interesting. And I almost start to like you. Then you say shit like, yeah, I just have spent the last few weeks watching you sleep without your consent. and I love the things you say about me in your sleep. Oh. Or, yeah, I'm like 80 years older than you, but you don't seem 17. Oh. Or, hey, you like this song I wrote for you? I was inspired by the way you sleep at night. Oh, like, stop! I put it in the notes, so I have to talk about it. There is this one scene, though. Because, like I've been saying, it's like, there's a lot of red flags. And I feel like, again, I'm not in high school anymore, so I could definitely be like, no, if someone was trying to watch me while I was sleeping, and not like, yeah, we've been a couple for a long time, we stay the night together, of course, like, you know, she wakes up before me, she might just kind of watch me sleep for a bit, like, it might be a little weird, but it's kind of sweet. Someone I've only just met or started dating, I don't like that. I don't like that you are able to get into my house at night, you know? But there is this one scene where it's after Edith saves Bo, and they go to this Italian restaurant. She's like, okay, you need to eat something. You need to have some fluid in you. I want to make sure you're okay. And she has Bo, like, make sure you get something to drink. And Bo drinks a Coke. And Edith just goes, good boy. I'm like, okay, that would have worked. Like, I would have melted at that. I can't even lie, and I hate it. But oh, there's Bo. You were the belly wub. He's a good boy, too. He's a sweet bubby. Anyways, sorry. I will probably still be petting my cat, but I want to get back to the point. But, like I said, I would get into the relationship more from Bo's perspective if I felt like Bo was really interested in Edith as a person rather than just as an idea. And I would get a lot more invested from Edith's perspective if she wasn't so damn creepy. But I feel like if the novel really, from Bo's perspective, really acknowledged how creepy it is, but they were still trying to make it work, or at the very least, Bo is trying to navigate his own feelings and also his survival instinct, I think this would have ruled. But that's not really what we got. But with what we got, there are some things that I like. I've mentioned a few bits that I actually found like pretty intentionally funny, and I gotta give him credit for that. In terms of unintentional hilarity, because I did watch the movie after I finished the book, and the scene, like the actual sparkling in the sun scene, where I'm gonna be honest, like the way they describe it in the book was, like, from what I remember, it's almost like she's like refracting this rainbow light. Like she's sparkling, she is glowing, and it's like crazy looking, and it looks so beautiful. And in the movie, as Edward's just sitting there, I'm like, is he actually sparkling? Like, yeah, like the light's maybe glowing a little bit, but I don't know. Okay, I guess there's these bits of gold. I don't know, kind of looks like they just dropped some golden glitter on Robert Pattinson, but okay, I guess that's sparkling. And there's like, yeah, like, well, how do I look? Beautiful. And then the look on Robert Pattinson's face is so funny to me. And I'm not trying to say like he does a poor job with it or anything, but it's just this like, what are you talking about? This is the skin of a killer, Bella. Again, as he's dappled in golden glitter. This is the skin of a killer. It's really, really funny. But there are some things I like. The comedy, both intentional and unintentional. Number 2, I really like Jules, which is the gender-bent version of Jacob. Because in the first book, Jacob is really likable. You don't get into any of the questionable behavior, like kissing Bella without her consent or imprinting on the baby. What you do get is someone who seems genuinely interested, but also is like, yeah, like, I remember you. You know, we used to hang out together. We were friends. And seems to want to have a genuine friendship with, again, I used Jacob and Bella. Jules will have a genuine connection with Bo. And Bo actually, like, notes how comfortable he feels around Jules. Like, no, I like talking to this person. I like hanging out with this person. I just feel comfortable when I see her. And I think there was even a point where she noted, like, wow, I finally hit the point with Edith where I feel comfortable like I do around Jules. Which kind of gets to, like, there's a reason there was a whole Team Jacob thing. because Jacob felt like a better partner, at least until like Eclipse. Because I think in the first book and then in New Moon, like, yeah, I don't remember a lot of red flags. Although, you know, did have to. Edward is, I have to lie to you to uphold the masquerade. Jacob is, I literally am, like, cannot tell you the truth. I have been bound not to do so, and I actually can't. But I'm going to do everything in my power to make you get to the truth because I don't want to keep you in the dark. And then Eclipse is one of like, okay, now we're getting to a lot of the issues. But I like this character a lot. I like a lot of the vampire lore. Again, like, the sparkling is silly. But number one, I like it just because it's different. I'll give it some credit for that. Number two, if I remember correctly, that's what inspired the book. Was Stephanie Meyer had a dream about, like, this man who was, I think it was, like, in a meadow and was sparkling, and she woke up and was like, that was such a cool image. I want to write his story and know what the hell was going on in the meadow. And I don't have a lot of work personally that is inspired by dreams. Sometimes it's some aspects. But one of my best friends, like, he is working on a project that was inspired by a dream. And it's a project that I love and cannot wait to see finished. So I have a lot of respect for that. It's like, this was the dream. I'm going to make it real. I think that's dope as hell. Number three, it does get in line with that whole apex predator thing and again, the fact that, yeah, they're really strong, they're really fat, all the bullshit I think is super neat. But the fact that when they're in the sun, the thing that is supposed to be their weakness is when they're theoretically at their most enticing. I think that's super neat, actually. The whole concept of the Volturi, you know, this is the vampire council who make fucking sure you uphold the masquerade, and there are consequences if you don't. I like that. Pretty much all the Cullen backstories are super fucking interesting. I have them all written down, so I guess I'll try to go through them relatively quick. We're already like half an hour in. I'm sorry. You know I'm loquacious to a fault, I say, as I keep talking and not getting to the point. That's how you know I'm back to making videos, and it feels great. But we've got Carlisle / Corinne, who their, like, zealot father, and maybe it was a mother in the original version, I don't remember, but their zealot father fucked with the wrong vampire. He said, I'm going to make a point out of you. I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to turn your child, the thing you love most, into the thing you hate most. And Corinne, fighting against her nature and her thirst, found another way to live by killing animals, because I refused to kill people. I refuse to kill my own kind, because even though I have changed, I'm still human. And constantly fighting against that nature to be a doctor so she can help people because she is kind. I really like that. Then you've got Esme / Ernest, whose spouse, I believe it was like an abusive spouse as well, committed suicide with their baby, and Ernest jumped so he could join them in death, but survived, was found by Corinne, who said, like, I'm going to save this person, and they've been together for hundreds of years. You've got Rosalie / Royal, and the actual specifics are a little different depending on the version. Rosalie's backstory is basically Kill Bill. Like, she was, I think it was like on the eve of her wedding. Because it was her fiance had his bachelor party where he and his friends like gang raped her and left her for dead. Then she was turned by Carlisle, saved her life, and she said, thank you. I understand your way of life. You don't want to hurt people. You don't want to kill people. That sounds great. I'm in. Just let me take care of some business first. And went after all of his friends, like the fiance's friends, not Carlisle's, one by one, leaving him for last, so he could live with that fear and that apprehension. And I remember she even said, she's like, when I got to him, he knew what was happening. He knew who it was. I loved it. And that's not in this book. I don't remember when Rose tells her back. So that, I don't think that's ever in Twilight. I think that's in Eclipse, but I could be wrong. Jasper's wasn't really in here either. I don't remember if that's not till Eclipse. I thought it was in the original Twilight. Maybe it's just a Bella Bow difference. But anyways, that's Rose. Royals is my fiance was part of turns out she was part of a rival gang, and like the night before our wedding, she lured me over to a trap, and like I was beaten to death and was left for dead, and then Corinne saved me. He's like, it's a little bit different. It's a lot less intense, but it's still kind of cool. Then you get Emmett slash Eleanor. It's like, what was your backstory? Yeah, I got mauled by a bear, and then the most beautiful woman in the world saved my life, like, wanted to eat me, and instead she fought against her nature to take me to Carlisle so he could save my life, and now we're together forever. Also, like I said, I was mauled to death by a bear, so the animal that I go and hunt are bears. It's not as, like, interesting or as, like, heartbreaking as the others, but it's kind of metal as hell. Alice and Archie, they were put in a mental institution because they had superpowers and seeing the future, and there was a vampire who worked there that looked after them and took care of them, but another vampire was hunting after them and was like, I want to eat this person. So the custodian vampire turned them to save them, and the tracker vampire, mad that they could never get their quarry, ended up killing that dude. Then, using the future powers, able to find their mate and then find the Cullens. Let's get to the mate. That's Jasper slash Jessamine, who was a former Confederate soldier who got turned and helped their maker, what's the term for that? Like your sire, I guess? Make like an army of new bloods. Okay, that would definitely be something that's brought up in Eclipse then. That actually makes a lot of sense. Anyways, an army of new bloods to like take over, I don't know, it was like take over the world, take over the country or something like that. But because their power is, I can feel the emotions of everybody. I can literally feel, people's fear as I'm killing them. I can feel like their pain and their suffering. So I can't do this shit anymore. So trying to wean off of that and be less bloodthirsty, and then was found by Alice and then went to the Cullens. And then Edith slash Edward themselves. Family died during the Spanish influenza, left alone, turned by Carlisle, the first one that they turned by, main character, I gotta save her for last. And was down with everything, like, alright, we won't hunt humans, but I can hear them. And there are some horrible fucking people in the world. And I'm thirsty. What if I can satiate my thirst, but not harm anyone who's worth a damn? So, for years, Edith was just the vampire version of the Punisher. That sounds like an awesome book to read. That sounds cool as hell. Or not even the Punisher. It's almost more like, okay, I mean, Punisher does that shit too. But you could also argue like Dexter, because the Punisher doesn't have that need to kill. I mean, maybe he does. I'm not as familiar with the Punisher. My understanding is more of just, he'll do what needs to be done, but Dexter is like, no, like, I have to kill people. I just have a code. Like, Edward is basically a vampire Dexter. That's metal as hell. I would love to watch that. I would love to read that. And if that story is what leads into the story about the really creepy vampire fighting against his nature to be with someone who loves him back, but is also terrified because they know if he ever decides that I am not worth it anymore, there is nothing I could do. Like, I want to read this book. I almost want to write this book. Like, oh, it sounds so fucking cool. Anyways, that's a lot of the shit I love. And the third act happens because vampires are so strong, apex predator shit, that if they hit a baseball, it sounds like a crack of thunder. So to uphold the masquerade, they'd only play baseball in thunderstorms. And the third act happens because the Cullens are playing baseball in a thunderstorm, and there's some nearby vampires who have been established earlier in the books. It's not like total bullshit that they're there. But some nearby vampires hear that and go, yo, someone's playing baseball. We should go join. Not because they're like, hey, there's other vampires and we're like really territorial. Or there's other vampires, we should scope them out before we do anything. It is literally, we want to play a game. And not even a fucked up, like, oh, like, let's play a game. Let's put our lives on. Well, we'll get to that in a second. It is genuinely, guys, we just really wanted to play some baseball. And that's why the third act happens. Is so funny to me. But honestly, that's just a fun idea. And it's when I say that I like the vampire lore, it's the neat shit like that that just kind of tickles me, you know? Like, that's just fun. That's neat. I'm glad that this exists. So let's just talk about the third act, because that's another thing I really enjoy. I really like James / Joss. I'm just gonna call him Jimmy. Jimmy's whole thing is like, yeah, I'm a tracker. I don't know if that comes with any powers necessarily, aside from the basic vampire set, but it's, I live for the thrill of the hunt. And when I find someone I want, I get them. But the more challenging it is, the more difficult it is, the more enjoyable it will be. Here we have my boy Bo. They smell pretty good. Not so good that's the greatest thing I've ever smelled in my life, but they smell good. This is good. Like, this one tastes good. I think I want this one. But what's this? There's an entire coven of vampires protecting this one human life. To get to this person, I have to go through all of them. The game's afoot. That is really fun to me. That is super neat. And I really like how Jimmy is able to get to Bo. Overhears a conversation that they want him to hear because they don't want him going after Bo's dad. They don't want him to go on my boy Chuck. So Bo loudly tells Charlie, I'm leaving here. I'm going home. I don't want to be in Forks, etc., etc. Part of it is to give, like, okay, this is my reason for leaving so people don't look after me, but also let James know I'm not going to be here. You don't need to mess with my dad. Jimmy overhears the conversation, ends up, it was still trying to find where Bo is, and then realizes, you know, Bo might have actually went to Phoenix like he said, realizing that, like, they basically pull this, like, you did this knowing that I know, but I know that you know, but you know that I know kind of shit, and realizing, I think they were trying to throw me off and did the one thing I wouldn't expect, which is the thing they told me they were going to do. And it's so dumb, it's actually clever. Okay, I'll go to Phoenix too. Goes to Phoenix, is able to find Bo's old home, goes inside, finds some old home movies of Bo's mom calling out his name, records that, or I guess just like has it on the TV, calls Bo's phone because it's in Bo's house, even though I have access to the number probably. And it's like, fuck, what is it? Like, plays the recording, the mom is like, shh, Bo, I have your mother. No, I'm not gonna mess with your mother. She's fine. But I'm sure you have some vampires over there. So what I need you to do right now, in the next 2 seconds or so, say, I'm okay, Mom. Say it now, please. I'm okay, Mom. Very good, Bo. Now try to sound more convincing next time. That's very important. But, like, working Bo through what he needs him to do, like, it's so creepy, and it's great, and it's in... Again, when it doesn't focus on the romance, Twilight's really good. Twilight is genuinely great at making these creepy scenarios, but with Edith, doesn't play up the horror. With Jimmy, plays up the horror, and it's really cool. And then, yeah, once Bo, like, gets to the location and realizes, oh, I've been played, it's really cool. I guess for me, it's just seeing, like, what Jimmy's plan really is and how it come together. Like, well played. I really liked that. I really appreciated that. And then plans to make a snuff film to piss Edith off because, like, this was a little too easy. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to eat you and I'm going to enjoy it. And I'm going to record it. And in the recording, you're going to beg Edith to come save you. Because when she watches this and realizes not only did she fail, not only did you suffer, but I made you suffer and that I enjoyed every second of it, she's going to come after me. Which means my game continues. So can you do this one thing for me, Bo? Can you scream for me? So creepy. And it's amazing. I will say, though, getting back to what I was saying about my boy Chuck, it's a trope I hate. I have to break your heart to save you. And given the fact that it's like, yeah, I said the words I said to my dad were the things my mom said when she left, and I don't think he ever got over my mom. Wow, that is brutal and heartless. And two, given that I guess, like, spoilers. Bo turned into a vampire at the end of this. There are no sequels. It happens here. Bo never gets to fix things with Charlie or make Charlie feel okay the way that Bella did. So Charlie's last image of his son is his son breaking his heart the way his ex-wife did. And then, like, a few weeks later or so, has to bury the poor kid. This poor man. It's a trope that I don't like. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, it's definitely not the Twilight Sparkle I'm used to. It's not the Twilight Sparkle I prefer. That's still this one. But I had a good time with Life and Death, Twilight Reimagined. There's still a lot that doesn't work, but there's a good amount that I genuinely enjoyed, and I honestly respected it a lot more than I thought I would. You know, on paper, the idea feels very lazy and very tongue-in-cheek, but reading the foreword and the afterword, it does seem like, no, Stephenie Meyer had a lot of regrets with Twilight, and not in the kind of way that an author always will, like, shit, you know, I should have phrased that better. I could have done a little bit more here. What if I had done this? And with the ending, it's like, I've always kind of wondered, what would happen if this had happened? This is the ending, and it'll always be the canon ending. But I kind of want to play around with this idea, and this gave her the ability to fix those things that have always bothered her, and also get to see her own, like, non-canon ending. And I think that's actually kind of neat. Again, it's almost 500 pages. I think it's a lot longer than it really needs to be. But I had a good time with it, and you probably know what happens in Twilight. But it might be worth revisiting. And I don't know. I don't know if I would give it like a strong recommendation, but I feel like if you have any interest in revisiting the novel, maybe not the series as a whole, but at least like let's see what started the whole craze, or you're at least curious in seeing what this version of it looks like, I would recommend taking a look. Take a look. It's in a book. You're reading Twilight.